All right. We back for another episode of The Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the usual suspects plus one. um, we are joined by this evening by Mr. Will Sirius. And I'm going to let Irie tell him his usual. I'm not telling you to introduce him, Irie, because you look giving me that look already. Like, what?
Like,
give
what?
your give your introduce yourself, and then I go into introducing Will.
Okay, I was just like, man, did I didn't get the memo. What's up, everybody? It's Chef Irie here. We're in the house. It's another Tuesday, and you know how we do. So, I'm chef. Been a chef for a minute, and I just coming here to speak my truth and be wise about speaking my truth. So we enjoy this vibe, and I hope you do too. So jump in and chat. Post your comments, post your questions, and let's vibe.
Okay, and next we have Mr. Like I said before, Mr. Will Sirius. He is a poet extraordinaire, an entrepreneur, uh, a youth advocate for the young people. And what's your latest venture you got going? Well, with your wine.
So right now, the latest venture is just really my own curated brand of wine. The first flavor was a hit, to be honest with you, not in the sense of financially, but it was more so in the eyes of my peers. For me, that was just my opportunity because I celebrated my 40th birthday in November. So, just getting of age, I said to myself, I wanted to kind of like put down some of that strong stuff down and get into an atmosphere where it was more so curated towards, our 40-year-olds up and something of that nature. So I'm excited to say that I'm on my second brand right now, which comes out February 13th.
And what's so special about that brand that it you dropped it just in time for Valentine's Day, my
Uh,
brother?
not so much Valentine's Day, but it is catered around love. Valentine's Day is something that we express our love for our significant other. So February 13th is actually my girl's birthday. So everybody knows her as Monet. They call her Monica, Monet for short. So my second brand, I kind of geared that towards her for her birthday and to show my love to her. I'm naming that second brand Strawberry Monet.
All right, now.
All right, love is a beautiful thing when it works right.
I know,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
I told her if we break up, I need all that back. You know what I'm saying? I need the whole bottle back, and the name.
Damn, and the name. Shoot.
You can't even call
All
herself Monica
all
no more.
royalties are forfeit.
Fill that bottle full of water.
But I'm gonna go ahead and spin us into one of Irie's favorite subjects because I'm finna hit you with this, Irie. Your man made it to the Super Bowl.
Oh man.
Oh boy, I tell you, I just can't believe this shit, man. I swear. Yeah, but I kudos and props to him, and kudos and props to the Tampa Bay Bucks. You know, and it does go to show that if you're talented enough, whether it's football, basketball, whether it's business, what have you, if you are talented enough, smart enough, and talented enough to, adapt to changing situations, it's not necessarily just you can succeed, you know, anywhere that you go, and I guess he's proven that even with one of the greatest coaches that you have right now, Bill Belichick, that he can leave Bill's system and flourish, in another system, very quickly, given his skill set. So, kudos to him, man. But I'm rooting for Kansas City all the way, homie.
You're not gonna root for the home state. You stay here in Florida now.
Hell yeah, I'm stink like that. I'm petty like that. Well, I got one of my clients plays for Kansas City, so I'm not trying to sell them out like that now, bro.
And hey, that's where you got to stay where you fed at.
You so so I'm rooting for Kansas City for sure. So I think I um I thought the game between Tampa Bay and Green Bay would have been a little different. Maybe I thought Green Bay would have won, but Green Bay just came out flat, just like how Buffalo came out flat against KC. Not that I expected Buffalo to win. It just seemed like they both those teams just came out. They came out flat, man. You
Well, I
know,
think they took it out of Aaron Rodgers' hand at the end of the game when they kicked that field goal. When you
they
got to
should.
go out. You got to go out on your shield.
Well, you know what?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think the way how Tampa Bay started the game, they came out blazing. They were just like, they went for that big play, boom, and just before the half, they went for that fourth down play. They were going to sit down. It's like no, yeah, they went out, and boom, touchdown. He was like shit, you know. So they came to say we are going to leave everything on the field, win or lose. I don't think, Green Bay did that. They didn't do that.
What you gonna say, Will?
I wasn't so much impressed with Tampa Bay's offense as much as I was impressed with their defense. I mean, they were on Aaron Rodgers all night,
Yeah,
and to have him, throw the ball when he really don't want to throw the ball, rushing his passes. I mean, that defense, you can say what you want about the game, but they dictated the tempo. And they gave Tom Brady a chance. And for a second, I thought Tom Brady was going to give that game away. He started throwing interceptions after interceptions, but his defense came on and said, you know what? We still go hold them to 3-and-out. Go back out there and do what you got to do. So,
right. Hmm.
But that's my whole thing. That Green Bay coach said you gonna kick and you gonna rely on our defense. And I'm like, but your defense ain't really been hitting, bruh.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So how you gonna take it out of one of the most gifted quarterbacks to
Hmm.
play the game hand and
yeah,
rely on your defense that hasn't been hitting? That that I think that was an unwise coach's decision.
yeah. Yeah, I think so too. But Aaron Rodgers has a part to play as well. He had an opportunity to run for a touchdown, and he
Yes.
elected to throw. You know,
I was like, what the frick? Just
Listen,
run
I
for
mean,
it, run for
wide
it.
open.
Hey,
Yeah,
hey, them legs ain't what they used to be.
Oh my
yeah.
God. You man. That
Hey,
played
he's not but
Brady
38 years old, man. He ain't
run.
up but 38. He could have
Yeah,
ran for that.
yeah. No, I mean, my boy's younger than Tom Brady now, but if that was Tom Brady, I was like, yeah, he ain't got them legs.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
but Tampa got that speed on defense though. So
And I still would have tried it something because knowing them, if they got, in my opinion, if they got within inches, I think they would have probably still try to punch it in. You know,
hmm
so who knows? But we'll never know. We'll never know.
yeah, but
Right?
that's why I say you supposed to go out on your shield. Both of them made unwise decisions. Aaron was
Right.
supposed to run with it, go out on your shield, and the
Yeah.
coach was supposed to go out on the shield. Hey, we tried.
Yeah.
That's all we can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it's like you're playing like this is the last game. You know,
Mhm.
this is the last game.
It was.
You know,
Literally, it wasn't the last.
it's like you're going home. You can pull out all the stops. Just like I couldn't understand. When the Dolphins need to. I mean, I understand they're playing Buffalo, but when they were playing that game, I was like, what are they playing like they have another game to play? Like,
Well,
you know,
I'm a Dolphin fan, and we always act like we got 30 games to play to get it right.
like,
I don't
dude,
ever understand that, man.
lose you home, and they're like, yeah, okay, we made, we yeah. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Oh boy,
I Irie's a Dolphin fan too, and he know I'll be sitting up here dragging them off.
Mullets.
I don't know, man. We gonna get it right. We gonna get it right eventually. You know,
Shoot, you know,
man,
Deshaun,
the
yeah, yeah,
quarterback.
y'all, if y'all be able to trade two out of here and get Deshaun,
God
Yeah,
damn. Everybody want to trade Tua.
hey, but if you can
that's
get
what Dolphins
Deshaun
fans do.
Watson, I said that's a trade. That's a
Yeah,
given trade. All right, go be the future for Houston.
He's definitely he's a I think he would. It seemed like he would flourish. Just look at. I think he would flourish the same way Tannehill, flourished when he left here to go to
Tennessee,
what's the team that he went to?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. All
Tennessee.
right, all
And
right.
everybody
I'm gonna pose a question that both of y'all gonna hate. What person that left the Dolphins ain't flourished?
ain't.
Man, listen,
Oh,
man. Dude, wasn't there a picture somewhere, man? I don't know, but everybody who left the Dolphins flourished, man.
yeah, that is yeah. Well, goodness gracious. But
I
but
mean,
the system was one. The type of players that he had around him. And everything that they said that he couldn't do,
he did.
he's in Tennessee.
Yeah,
He can't throw the long ball, he can't run, he can't play fast. I was like, okay, and so you go and he's the most. What did yeah, last year he won most improved comeback player or something like that.
yeah.
So he was consistent for the most part. This season too. So sometimes a change of scenery does do a fellow well.
Yeah.
Came that close to going to the Super Bowl last year too.
Yeah, everybody that left the Dolphins, that change of scenery has done them well.
Goodness gracious.
Man,
Especially the cats that are in Cleveland. Took them a little minute just to get back to Cleveland to get back to some sort of prominence. They played really well in the playoffs, and there were some players on there that were at the Dolphins. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, Landry was flourishing over there.
hmm
man, I knew that kid had it. To be honest with you, Landry was just someone who, regardless where he went, he just really needed a quarterback. Throwing 10 yards, throwing 15 yards to Landry, that's not what we do. That's not we were really holding him back, and we used him on special plays as far as like running reverses. That's not his. That's a benefit, but he's a down the field guy. So
Yeah.
Well, I guess he
So
is where he is. And they are where they are.
so
Yeah.
let me
I
ask
would
you a question. Just with Cleveland, you think they better off with Landry and not Beckham, or the both of them?
I think the problem there is not neither one of them. Is your boy uh the quarterback. He
Baker
feels
Mayfield,
he got Baker got feels once Odell is on the field, he's trying too hard to get the ball to
right?
Odell. He's
Gotcha.
not letting the game come to them, and
So
that's
they'll
where
do anything without him.
yeah. So
Wow.
that's where the flaw lies with it. That's why they look better when Odell is not on the field because he's not trying to force the ball into.
Right. Okay.
So I guess if you're an opposing, team, then if you're looking for teams, you can spot certain patterns, and you know exactly how you're gonna line your defense up if he's gonna be trying all the time to get it to Odell. You
Right.
know, but I mean, notwithstanding anything, they played a hell of a season.
Yeah.
They played a hell of a season.
Yeah.
But before they were truly in the dog pound.
Years. Years.
They were in the dog pound. You know, but I think everything is cyclical. I think for the league though, Teams that were down are now up. And there's some teams that were up are going to be down again.
Yeah,
And it's very cyclical, just like the stock market. Damn it.
yeah,
Okay. So, what else is happening in the sports world? Oh, we definitely gotta pay homage to RP to Kobe and Gigi.
right.
Today was the anniversary of the passing of those two and the people that perished on the helicopter with them. We want to
Yeah,
send our respects out to those families.
Yeah,
most def,
absolutely.
most def.
So now I'm gonna ask you who y'all. Well, I know who you got, Irie, in the Super Bowl, Kansas City. Who
Kansas
you
City.
got, Will?
Man, it's so hard to go against someone who has 6 rings, man. 6 rings. Now, truthfully, I'm looking at this game as like the passing of the torches because Mahomes is like he's one of those guys that can really stabilize a team and they can win for many years. So for me, I'm stuck, man. To be honest with you, I am stuck. I think Super Bowl weekend, I'm gonna just be a fan and hope for a good game. May the best man win, but I honestly can't call it because Mahomes, that Kansas City team. Did you see Tyreek Hill catch a 5 yarder and go out for 30?
Yeah,
Like Hill said, is just you let him go in the open field. I don't think anybody can catch that guy.
you
I
got
know.
to think about the last time they played Tampa. He had 200 yards in the first quarter.
Right, and I don't, and they even changed personnel. So what's gonna be different? So and then you have someone like Travis Kelsey who is just man. They use him as a blocker off the ball. So it's we literally talking about two guys that can kill you. But then you got Patrick Mahomes who can make smart decisions. But at the same time, with Tom Brady, if you block for this guy and give him time, he'll tear you apart. So it's hard to tell, man. I'm just hoping
My
for a
thing
good
is, yeah, for some reason, I'm thinking it's not going to be a very high offensive scoring game.
game.
Forget with
Okay.
the, and I think as much as they were talking about Kansas as a defense that was, fell off a little bit. I think within these 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, um, look for both the defensive sides to read. I mean, Tampa Bay they're on a high, in terms of their defense. But I think Kansas City's defense is really going to step it up again, just like they did last year in the Super Bowl. You know,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that
Jay,
defense is going to step it up again.
let me ask you this, Jay. You might have to get a fact check right now. How much points does Kansas City average? How much do they average? You know?
this year
During
I
the
think
Yeah.
season,
it, I think this year it dropped. Can I get a fact check on that? What's Kansas City average point total? But I think it's 20, like
they're
24, 28.
Okay.
the
Yeah. That.
average.
The average.
I think it's more than that.
No,
Yeah.
last year was more than that. This year it dropped because they
I'm
weren't
thinking.
producing. They weren't like people. The teams are hip to most of. They can't stop it.
Yeah.
They can slow it down. That's all they can do is try to slow it down for
Yeah.
the most part.
I'm thinking they probably averaging like 30, 35 points a game. That's I would have thought that this year they seem to always be up there. I
Yeah,
don't
but see,
know.
that's one thing I would say. If it jump out to a high scoring game, I don't think Tampa could keep up.
No,
Gotcha.
especially if I mean, yeah, they have the personnel, but I think just like I said,
Okay,
if you
okay.
don't if you don't give if you don't give Brady the time of day, you are prone to be more successful. But if you give him the time to
Tell
actually
her I'm
step up and throw that ball, yeah, you're in for a long afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, so what
um
else is happening in the world of sports? There may not be no Olympics this year, homie.
but
No.
we gonna switch gears because our special guest has logged on. I'm finna bring her in right now. So
Uh,
we gonna switch in and bring Dr. G into the room. Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. G.
We still can't hear you.
Here we go. Hey
Okay,
everyone.
yeah,
Good
yeah.
evening.
We can definitely hear you now and see you. Uh,
It's good to be here. I was trying to get connected for a second and was struggling a little bit. How
yeah,
is
but
everybody?
well, I'm wonderful tonight. The fellas are. We was waiting for you to join in so we can jump on to this conversation about the vaccination.
Sure, sure.
So I'm gonna throw my man on the spot right quick. Watch it get bright eyed on me. This is our chef extraordinaire, Chef Irie. He brings clarity and calm to the show.
But when I
Love to see
myself
it.
am clear and calm, yes.
Love to see it.
And we also have Will Serious right here, the poet extraordinaire, a youth advocate, and he produces his own wine.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I love it.
she got excited about that part. You know,
I listen. I do enjoy a nice full-bodied red wine.
yeah,
So that's great.
Where's your
I
glass
love it.
at, dog? Where's your glass? Did you
You
not
yeah.
get
know what? I didn't
no?
get to the glass, and unfortunately, there's a lot of work that's going to follow our conversation today. So I don't want to get started too early.
Got
Oh,
and
okay.
and I see you representing with your orange and green on tonight this evening.
You know it. A little Ankara head wrap to. I mean, I'm Nigerian. My background is Nigerian, but also I do just like head wraps in general. So thank you.
Oh, good. Well, we can talk about
Appreciate that.
recipes later. Cool.
So let's get this ball rolling. Um, I said let's get the conversation going about the vaccine. Ari, you got something you
Yeah.
want to pose first? Or you?
Well, first and foremost, the biggest question, the biggest, thing out there for is for us black folks. And if people are talking about the numbers of individuals or pockets of people who are getting vaccinated versus not vaccinated, when you look at here in Miami, you know, you have more white people getting vaccinated, and the percentage of black people getting vaccinated in Miami is about between what 2 and 5%. But the biggest reason for a lot of that is the way the antipathy that people feel about the vaccine, not wanting to be vaccinated because we are black, even though we are dying at a disproportionately higher percentage, and that all has is stemming from things that have happened in the past. So first, how do we get us to believe that this is something that can truly help us, and not sit on the sidelines waiting and thinking that we're all going to turn into zombies.
I love that. Yeah, I know folks have been like, we're going to turn into mutants, or what was it back in December? We're wondering about if they're going to acquire superpowers. So
That too.
I honestly, the biggest thing is that, like, one, we are individuals who have autonomy, right? And in order for us to make decisions about things, we need to be informed. We need to get the right information. So hopefully I'm here to provide that. And I'll just like quickly introduce myself for folks who like don't know how to pronounce my name if they see my name. My name is Dr. Ayodele Gomi, or Dr. Dele. And I'm an epidemiologist, so I study disease is. I study why, how, who it's happening to, how frequently it's happening, and then how to prevent those things from affecting the population on a grand scale or certain populations. And I'm particularly invested in wanting to see, Black folks thrive and be healthy. So when I think about, the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been over a year now that we're dealing with this. And we see that it is disproportionately impacting Black folks. It's also disproportionately affecting Latino population as well, Indigenous folks, but it is hitting us hard. And so we kind of have some options or some decisions to make about that. Do we kind of just like allow this to, or do we make some? I hope you can hear me.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Okay, wonderful.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. It's showing me things. So in the beginning, it was about masking up. It was about staying home, social distancing, trying to do everything that we can to mitigate the spread of this virus, which is it's person-to-person contact, right? So it can be transmitted in these particles when you're speaking or talking or singing. And sometimes those particles can be sustained in the air, which is around like aerosols, the way that you would spray a can, right? So that hasn't been the most effective measure for a lot of reasons, largely failed leadership. And we could go on in a whole different direction about what 2020 was like under the different administration. So now we're in this, we have this additional way of mitigating the impact of disease, which is this vaccine. And there are a few, it's not just one. The two main ones that have been in circulation in the US are Pfizer and Moderna. And so, there's data that are available. And now the conversation is about, one, how do we make sure we let people know like this data is widely available and people are being transparent about what these studies showed and how effective the vaccine has been, and then why we need to really majorly consider vaccine as a way to continue to protect ourselves, in addition to these other measures that have been put in place by like the CDC and whatnot. Now, that's not, of course, ignoring that there is a history of medical violence in the Black community, in the Black population. And so the conversations have to be, stuff like this. Happy to be here and chat. And I know it took me, it's been so busy working on COVID that I haven't been able to do this as much as I would like. And so I'm glad to be here to do that. But also having conversations with people who are seen as leaders, who we can also say hey, here are the facts. Here's what's happening with this. Here's the fact that it's not as bad, or this situation of say a Tuskegee, right? There's more transparency. We just need to continue these conversations. That's kind of a longer answer.
Okay. So with the vaccination, with the shot where you have to have 2 doses, how soon after the first one do you start developing immunity to it?
Sure. So for both, at least, so I'm talking about Pfizer and Moderna anytime I'm talking about the vaccine, because those are the 2 that are approved for use in the US. Again, there's 3 others that are in production and a couple that are still in trial, but the ones that we know and are being actively administered are Pfizer and Moderna. So once you get the first shot, it usually takes a few weeks. It's around 14 days really for you to start to see immunity, but the full scope of immunity comes after the second dose, right? So that booster that is determined For if it's 3 weeks if you're taking the Pfizer after you've taken the first dose, and it's 4 weeks after the for the Moderna. That's meant to just sort of like solidify that immune response that you see. So yeah, that's effectively like what we're seeing. It's taken about a couple of weeks for it to start to develop, and then at that point, you're either at the 3rd week or the 4th week that you're taking the second dose to solidify it.
Okay.
Yes. Load them up. It's like, yeah, ready to go.
So y'all got a cigar? I really should have had a cup of wine.
And they have,
okay, so it's I'm on the West Coast, so I still have work, so I'm like, I'm holding on. I'm gonna join y'all in about 3 hours.
So let me ask you this. So if after that first shot and you start feeling really bad, what should you do?
So the scope of like feeling bad looks different. So on a large scale, it seems that most folks aren't really having major issues aside from like the chills, the fatigue, low-grade fever. And just so folks know, like that's not uncommon for when you get a vaccine. If anything, that should be telling you like, hey, my body is like going to work, my immune system is going to work and producing antibodies. It's that feeling that you feel when like your body is noticing that something is going wrong and it's fighting it. And so that's what that's effective mechanism of this vaccine is, right? It's introducing let me go backwards a little bit so people are like super clear, because I know this is another issue around the vaccine and if it's introducing the virus and are you getting sick because you think you have COVID. For Pfizer and Moderna, both, they are mRNA vaccines. So that means that it's giving you only a portion, like a small, like it's the instructions for only a portion of the virus. It's not coronavirus that's in the vaccine. It's just a literally like messenger RNA that gets destroyed. It's an unstable particle that tells your body, hey, make this protein that is the same protein that coronavirus uses to invade your healthy cells. So once you receive that vaccine, those proteins, and your immune system will recognize it doesn't belong here. Let's produce the antibodies to fight that off. And the idea behind vaccination is to basically prepare your body to fight it off. So when you do encounter the real thing, it already knows it has a memory response to be like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. I'm fighting you off so you don't get sick. So like if you're feeling bad, then at least for like if you're having low grade symptoms, you can take Tylenol, you can take ibuprofen, basically to help mediate. You might even have like soreness at the site of your injection. I got mine a couple weeks ago, and my arm was sore for like a few days. I took a Tylenol, and I felt a little bit tired. Made sure to get a lot of rest, and you just continue to take your vitamins and whatnot, things that you would do to really just take care of your body in a normal circumstance. Now, I want to also preface this that I'm not a clinician. I have a PhD and not an MD. So in the event that you feel really bad, you consult a physician about that, so that we can know. And then maybe if you have a history of allergic reactions, that's also something to bear in mind around getting the vaccine itself, and then how long they're observing you when you get the vaccine. Usually, if you're like super allergic, you'll know once you get the vaccine, like it happens with pretty soon. It's not sort of like that sustained, you get hives later on. For the most part, the incidence of the severe allergic reactions has been really, really low, which is very exciting for this vaccine.
I guess that's why the recommendation is that you usually wait 15 to 20 minutes in the location that you've gotten the vaccine administered before you actually leave to go anywhere, so that they can monitor you to see if there's anything that's going on.
That's exactly right. It's 15 minutes for folks who haven't had a history of allergic reaction, 30 minutes for folks who have.
Right. Word. This is serious.
No, I mean,
In a good way.
I think we've all had questions and concerns about it. Just as Chef said before, just within our culture, we typically go off of what everyone says and we run with it and not really get the full facts of, how things are supposed to help us and so on and so forth. And for me, I think the biggest thing, my mom actually, we're of Haitian descent. And she actually asked me, and I'm not an MD as well, but she asked me, should she take it? And I advised her, if to go ahead. But one of her questions was, what happens if she doesn't take the second dose?
Yeah, sure. And I saw another message around medicine that should not be taken. I don't know the full list of contraindications, but one thing that has been noted is not to take Tylenol or ibuprofen beforehand because it might interfere with the antibody response. So I just wanted to also put that out there.
Okay.
As far as not getting, what happens if you don't get the second dose? The recommendation obviously is to get the 2. We don't have enough information about whether what we're going to see for the sustained immunity, like having long-term immunity after the first dose. There is some initial data that does say like it's still pretty high, really. And I think we, in light of, making sure that there's enough vaccine supply, how much people are receiving, states are receiving, and what's able to be distributed. If it's delayed beyond what the recommended time period is, the 3 weeks for Pfizer and the 4 weeks for Moderna, it's not going to, like, if you miss it by a day, it's not going to break you. Even if you miss it by like a couple of weeks, it's not going to break you.
Gotcha.
And so I still suggest, obviously, wanting to take it according to what was done in the trials. But in other cases, for instance, the HPV vaccine, it was even noted that the other vaccine where you get 2 doses. One, I think it's the first dose, and then the next dose is either 2 to 3 months apart. So like one, that's even 2 to 3 months. And then there are studies that showed that even if it was extended longer, that it was actually even more protective for you. So, time will tell. We're still like in the beginning of like understanding how long we'll see this, but previous data in other situations might help us to feel a little bit better if you're not exactly on that schedule.
Gotcha.
Okay. Let's see.
Fact check, I had asked a question earlier. Are there any medications that we should not take? Well, I guess if you get the vaccine, and I'm assuming that all comes down to if you have a physician, you consult based on your medical history, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I think those are the same notes about someone who might be immunocompromised, and even I believe in the studies we were seeing, among folks who were showing that it would be harmful to them to get the vaccine. But I would say check in with your doctor. The only one that I made note of earlier was not to take Profen before vaccination, but take it after if you're starting to feel that soreness or some pain or discomfort.
Okay, I have a question. Should pregnant women take the vaccination? Well, fact checker just came in with it too.
Yeah, look at it. Fact checkers, y'all are on it. So this is I know people have been also sort of like tentative about this, right? And what we do know about like COVID-19 in pregnant women is that it is not good. It is, if you are high risk, if you are pregnant and have COVID-19. That said, the vaccine is not COVID-19, right? As I was saying before, it is just that it's mRNA that's coding only for a portion of the virus, not the whole virus itself, and so it can't give you COVID-19. When the data was looked at for both of the vaccines, while they didn't directly look at pregnant women, there were women who became pregnant in the study. And among those and the folks who did actually the vaccine, because there are two groups, people who get vaccine and those of placebo, which is nothing. Those who got the vaccine, they were fine, right? And then among those who had placebo, it was noted that two folks had miscarriages. So that said, I cannot say you should not get it if you're pregnant, and evidence seems to show it's not enough. If we still need to understand more, but so far it seems like there is not harm if you get the vaccine, but it is also a conversation of like, what are the other risk factors that you have going on? Are you do you have high blood pressure? Do you have diabetes? Do you have asthma or some of the other issues that make you more at risk of having severe COVID-19 if you get coronavirus, right? So like those are considerations that you should be thinking of. And of course, again, talk to your doctor. But so far it seems as though the risk of taking the vaccine is a lot lower than it would be for somebody who is pregnant and getting COVID-19. Does it help?
Okay. Maybe. Oh, fact checker got a lot of questions today.
Yeah, well,
Fact checker want to tell you something.
nah, bruh.
You're trying to dot I's and cross her T's.
Well, see, what you don't realize, the fact checker is my wife, so so it's like, no.
Y'all are funny.
We have fun around here, Doc. We have fun around here. Yes. It's all good.
But does it help the fetus or the baby develop immunity since the mother was vaccinated?
The short answer is don't know yet. I think I'd seen anecdotally something around mother to child transmission of immunity and not necessarily COVID-19 transmission, but I don't know with certainty whether or not that's the case yet. We will know more as there are more studies among women who are pregnant and then also women who are breastfeeding and then and receive the vaccine.
All right.
I got a question or reference to something. So one of the reasons I think people, both Black people and I guess across the board, different cultures and races, most people were saying they would be hesitant in taking the vaccine because of the time period that these vaccines were formulated and were able to be produced versus, quote unquote, I guess if you would, the standard time frame that we've seen most vaccines it takes to actually get to that point where they can say, okay, here's a vaccine that we can use. So people were really questioning the time frame that it was produced, and so people were saying, okay, we'll wait until later in the summer or what have you. So if you can speak on that, to give them some confidence, to say, the time period is what it was.
Yeah, I'll say what made me feel better too, right? Because obviously all of this is emerging, it's evolving, we're still learning as we go. Yes, vaccines usually go through sort of like this phase where you're developing the thing, and then you go through 4 phases of clinical trials, and then it goes into manufacturing or production, right? In this case, what we were able to, or what research and scientists were able to really get a super head start on for this was that mRNA vaccines are not new. It's not new technology. It has been something that's been studied for at least 10 years, like 10 to 13 years, which in itself is around like the time frame that we are also just looking at vaccine development for HPV, for polio, for measles, Hep A, et cetera, right? So we kind of had a head start, frankly. There's research on coronaviruses. This is not the first coronaviruses we've encountered. We've encountered the first SARS back in 2003. I just remember that date. And we encountered Middle Eastern coronavirus, that's MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, which is caused by another coronavirus. So also that's not new to us. So we were able to really sort of like go then into the phase of a clinical trial, which is phase 1. You're just testing like, what is this? How is this vaccine working? Is it effective in preventing disease, right? And then we moved on into phase 2 and phase 3 trials. And what also helped is that they took a gamble, frankly. They were like, based on like all this prior knowledge where we had already determined like this is likely to be pretty effective, we're going to actually go ahead and start production in hopes that this trial actually is good. And thankfully, it proved itself correct, right? We're looking at around 95% efficacy, 90 to 95% efficacy for both Moderna and Pfizer, and see that it's safe. There are very minimal, like 0.1% of severe adverse reactions into these trials of over 35,000 people, which is also like really large vaccine trial. So when I read that, I was like, okay, I was looking at articles, I'm looking at other colleagues, fellow epidemiologists, fellow virologists, people who study viruses, folks who are studying clinicians. So it gave me more confidence to say, y'all can jab my arm.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Yes. Mm.
So let me see. Will, you got something you want to ask?
No, I think like Chef said, I think the biggest concern, especially within my community amongst my peers, we all just question, the rapidness of it, and for a lot of my friends, they lost quite a few loved ones, and I think their frustration came when they started losing people, and then bam, a vaccine was produced. They weren't sure if they were trying to, cure people or just to put out a vaccine, just to put a vaccine out. And I think that's why there's some apprehensiveness within our community to get vaccinated, and a lot of people are still hurting with dealing with the losses that they're dealing with.
Yeah, I just in the past 2 weeks, I've lost 2 very dear people to me, very dear, which has been tough, while also like still actively having to work on COVID-19, like surveillance, and now working on like getting back out to folks, right? So, I just lost the window. I think what also like people should consider, right? One, this vaccine isn't being charged, like it's not being charged to you to get, right? This is where they're pushing vaccination. In LA, there are mass vaccine sites where they're actually just like allowing people to drive up and get vaccine based on the phases and whatnot. And you would see the news, like, I totally get that for Black folks, and just continuing to question, especially because it was hitting us hard. And like there are people who are like paying money trying to jump the line, who don't look like us, right. trying to get in for this. So it's like it isn't something that's being targeted, right? If anything, there is really low uptake, like Chef Irie was saying. I was even reading because I'm not in Florida anymore. Miss y'all, and especially the warm part right now. But the place that had the highest vaccination among 65 plus, because I think that's where you all are at in your distribution right now, was somewhere like super rich and white. That was the highest uptake, and in Opa-locka, it was 25 to 40% among folks who are eligible, and there's a whole conversation around 65 plus, does it actually capture the way that so many other factors, both structural, environmental, biological effect.
Oh, we lost the connection with her. Let's hopefully she can jump back on. But that she would be a good person to ask that question right there that this person imposed right here. Why is they're not promoting healthy eating to build up your immune system?
That was something too that I got a lot of, before vaccination, people were throwing out a couple of things, as far as what is it called? Ginger, drinking a high, ginger, lemon, all those sorts of things. And I've never bought so much ginger in my life, and prior to this, I just didn't.
Yes,
But
Yeah, she's back. Okay.
The internet's hating on me, y'all. What is
technology, my dear. Technology, it is.
come back to Florida. That's LA connection.
West Coast turbulence. Turbulence. So it seems like we have a really perfect question for you. So you can read it after, James.
Okay, it says why don't the CDC or who promotes healthy eating to build up your immune system? Why is the answer only vaccination?
Yeah, so I mean, it isn't only vaccination as the answer. It is all the above. I was always telling folks, and I do it myself, do all the things that can help your body fight off the bad bugs, right? And so that's inclusive of, vitamin C, whatever gives you a boost, lots of fluids, exercise, diet, all of that. I'm a huge proponent of that. And all of that is the other research that we see even before the pandemic came along has always talked about how much diet is a part of that, and then the CDC. And this virus is smart, and it requires multiple ways of addressing and mitigating it and keeping it from infecting our loved ones and causing them to have to go into the hospital and be in ICU.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it may not see moss and ginger shots and all of that. Not to say don't do it, but it needs to be coupled with something that we know is going to prevent or at least prevent you from getting severe disease, and make it harder for you if you have other health issues to get treated when you're in hospital too. I had to correct myself because I almost said prevent the virus. And to be clear, at the moment, if you get vaccinated, it's not certain whether or not that's impacting transmission. So once you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can move it about and you can go on without a mask. You actually should still be wearing a mask because you can get it and not be affected in the same way that the flu vaccine works. You get the flu shot, you're not going to end up in the hospital from the flu. Your body is already recognizing and been all right, yep, I'm fighting that off. However, if you can still be a carrier and pass it on to somebody who has not been vaccinated, or pass it on to somebody who was asymptomatic and has antibodies from when they had been infected. So if that happens, then you're still putting other people at risk. So, we can't sort of move in the same way as that we did. But the point is, we have to take multiple angles. And what has been tried and true, not just in coronavirus, but in other infectious diseases and other diseases, you have to take multiple approaches. Vaccine is a great way, as well as everybody wear your mask and continue to show, Lord, socially distant. Um, and so it's just really important for us to think about this comprehensively. You can't just like leave it all alone. Coronavirus doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that's of concern to me, and I know they spoke about it earlier last year in terms of the 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 amount of times an individual can contact the 19. And so some of the things that's of is folks who have contracted it, gotten gotten over it, and sometimes it seems as if they forget that they had it, and they just seem like they're just out here having a grand old time. Sometimes no mask, no nothing, and it just seems as if they're in the same category. I guess now the new I guess generation of people will be now the people who have been vaccinated, feeling that they too now can just be free, truly free and about, and not giving concern to other people.
Yeah, that's true. That's
You know. Go ahead, Mr. J.
So,
What were you saying?
no, I'm saying that's true. Hold on, where any children are part of the initial studies for the vaccination?
No. So thanks for that question too. So the vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, were for 16 and 18 plus. Be reversed. I think Pfizer was 18 and older, and Moderna was for 16 and older. There weren't young people in that study. However, there is an ongoing study now looking at the efficacy of the vaccine in children. I think it's I can't remember the name of it, but they're looking at that now.
Okay.
yes, yes, yes. So, what was I going to ask a while ago? Um, so how do we go about spreading the word now, spreading the word of confidence per se to our people, that look like all four of us on this panel, on this screen? How do we spread that word and vote of confidence to ensure, that more people will now consider taking the vaccine?
Yeah, and I like how you phrase that. Consider, right? Because at the end of the day, your decision. Um, Also, something has to be done. You make the decision around whether to wear a mask or not, or like whether to wear a vaccine or not. And we've seen in other countries, who have been able to get it under control before it became available on the market. And I've said this in other settings, like we missed a really cool window at the beginning of this pandemic where in a better position, but that's not where we're at now. So yeah, to have those conversations, to get the word out, sort of what I was sharing earlier. Yes, you have the right to ask questions, and I would encourage folks to also continue to hold forums like this, whether it's with your faith group or folks that you play ball with or with. If you're still keeping distance right now, I'm so sorry that it's impacting y'all. The people that you maybe work with, or just being able to continue to just ask the question, because it is evolving. We're always trying to understand how to continue to make sure that the risk. So doing research as well on your own. I do want to encourage folks, I know that the institutions, people have been sort of anti-institution, and folks in a poor light. And I do want to at least elevate leadership can make that more difficult. And as a public health practitioner, it has been difficult to see sort of these really this, like the folks like the CDC or folks who are just doing research on their own around this, who have been sort of like decimated because there's just been all sorts of seeds. And so talk to your physician folks as well, like local Black doctors who are on the front lines, who might have an opportunity to also talk about this. I got to big up Dr. Armin Henderson, who you all might know, and I've had the pleasure serving with in community before. We just got to also mention, and I hope to continue to support my sister in this. Her name is Dr. Bobby Banks, and she has a platform and campaign called Not a Host. And so Google Not a Host. Hopefully that that is research that is peer reviewed, that other scientists have looked at as well, so that we got to get out of this. We can have 2020. We can.
No.
I have a quick question. So as a parent, this has been extremely frustrating. To say the least. And before you joined us this evening, I was just telling Jay, there's just recently today, the school in which my kids go to, they just contracted 40 new cases, and now they have to be quarantined. So, with hearing what you just displayed to us, shared with us today, in the vaccine being haven't really been tested in young adults or young or children, what can we do to mitigate the risk for them, especially in allowing them to go back to school?
Yeah. So it's tough, right? A lot of like the prevent measures, and this is to that point of what can be done even before the vaccine became available. When folks are saying, really, if you don't have to be out, like don't really be out, and wear your masks and wear over your nose and your mouth and wear more than one. At this point, I think it was New York Times just spoke about like needing to make sure that you have a good quality mask. So you needing to double up on layers. My opinion, and this is as an epidemiologist who studies it and is continually studying it, is that we may need to sort of like take the more stringent measures. And I know that's tough on parents because that means you got to do the school at home thing while you have work. And so I'm not sure if I have the greatest answer to that, other than being able to continue to do everything that you can, and also like being more stringent. So you may not be able to go kick it as much as you did with your people, because all it takes is one person at that gathering for you to be exposed. And all it takes is one person in 15 minutes. Actually, you are in a room for 15 minutes with somebody who has COVID and they're not well masked, and you're not 6 feet apart, and you don't have your masks on. And then it's like a chain reaction. It can go really quickly. And now we're dealing with like these other variants that are coming into play because viruses mutate is what they do. So like we do have to like really stay on top of those sorts of measures. But yeah, I mean, the regulations for schools, depending on where you are, I think some schools are still doing the home thing, and I don't have a great solution to like people being able to go back to school right now.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned about the variants. We got from Brazil, we got from South Africa, we got from UK, and so as I'm listening to information as it comes out, through some of the media, in terms of saying that the current vaccines should be able to help, still ward off the effects of the variant, and the possibility that down the line you may have to have a booster. So in terms of development of vaccines, do it if you were to get a booster, is it the same vaccine that you have, or is the vaccine continuously being updated after this initial period?
So it's like a step answer to that. Vaccines generally are developed with mutations in mind, right? So that's one part, right? And so the fact that this vaccine is one of different kinds, or sorry, two vaccines that are in the US is one of a few different kinds of vaccines that can exist. In this case, it's coding for like the spike protein. And the variants that have come into question are mutations in parts of the spike protein, right? But it's not the entire spike protein. So far it looks like it's effective, and they're trying to be mindful and anticipate, if there are, continual mutations that occur, getting the vaccine to be able to accommodate that. Now, as far as is it the same versus different, there's two parts to that kind of. So one, if you get like the Pfizer vaccine, you should continue to get the Pfizer vaccine.
Right.
And if you get Moderna, you should continue to get the Moderna. So there's that, do that. But I believe Moderna is the one that's working on being able to anticipate any further changes that might occur so that it is more robust. Not that it's totally ineffective, because that's not what we're seeing, but to maintain that high efficacy. And that's also similar to the flu. The flu is one of the faster mutating viruses of viruses. Coronavirus is actually a slower mutating one, believe it or not. But the flu vaccines are, it's like the research that's anticipating what might be happening or what we might encounter in the future. So folks are able to build that immune response to fight that version off. Which vaccine is better? I can't. For the folks who can't see the chat, someone asked which vaccine is better, Pfizer or Moderna. They both perform greatly, and they're both also like actively working to address the variants, right? And so far, I think they're both sort of like on the same trajectory. So I know people have gotten Pfizer. I know people have got Moderna. I myself got Moderna. Right now, they're in the same space.
So with both Moderna and Pfizer, they're double shot vaccinations. With Johnson and Johnson, that's supposedly coming out soon.
Mhm.
With one shot. It has the research changed in terms of the efficacy of the one shot vaccine? Has it increased any since when they first stated that they had gotten to a point where they could put a vaccine out? Because I think at the time when they first came out, it was only about 75% or something like that. So has that changed any for that vaccine to come out?
Yeah. So the difference between the Johnson and Johnson one and like AstraZeneca, those are the other two, and one other one that I can't remember. Y'all forgive me because it's been a really long day. I should know it, but right now it's escaping me. Those ones are slightly different from the ones that we're seeing that are in distribution in the U.S. So those are like adenovirus vaccines. So basically, it's taking a virus that it's not quite coronavirus, but it's making alterations so that it can mimic what a coronavirus would do as well. And so the mechanism is different from what we have here in the Pfizer and Moderna, where it's like, okay, well, here's instructions, just code this small part of the actual virus that we know to be, versus here's another virus altogether. We're going to make some changes to that, and then it will tell your system to trigger a response. So they're still in trial, as far as I know. I think they're going to be evaluated by the FDA I think it was rumored to be end of February, but maybe pushed back. I'm not exactly certain. So as far as efficacy, yeah, I think it was around 75%, 80, but I think we'll still know because they're in trial still. So that will come eventually. We'll get that information at some point this year.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right. So someone asked, only requires one dose. Is that safe? Will that be safe as far as like if it will be effective? That's the sort of what I was getting at. I mean, so far it isn't ineffective, right? It's actually shown to be effective, and to get one dose, it's, as I was saying, even for the vaccines that we already know to exist, you're starting to see immunity even after one dose, and so even that duration when it's either 3 weeks or 4 weeks. If it's a little bit longer after that, it's still said to be good, right? So, and when you're assessing long-term immunity for something, it's more about like, time will tell us around how effective it is for immunity's sake. But again, once we see the full data for the Johnson & Johnson study, we'll know more.
I think the fact checker had a question.
Oh, I've had it minimized.
The fact checker said, if all my loved ones and I get vaccinated, can we go without a mask with each other?
Yeah, I was talking a little bit about this. So no, it is recommended right now that even if you're vaccinated, you still wear a mask. Only in the same sense that like you don't know if you're going to be a carrier for coronavirus and pass it to somebody else who might pass it on to somebody else who has not been vaccinated, or somebody who hasn't been infected within the past 30 days, right? So because we don't have enough information around if we're transmitting or passing it on to somebody else, we still have to be you have to be proactive about preventing the spread to other people. So this is where like concepts like herd immunity come in, where you have to get the population to be at least 60-70% immunized, which is either through the vaccine, which is preferred because if you get coronavirus, you don't know if you're going to progress to something that's more severe. So that's why again, if you're building immunity, that is not going to give you the actual virus. So act like there's no coronavirus around because it's still in circulation. Get something. How long will blurred out? So so this is a question around once everybody gets vaccinated. So the question is, when will everybody get vaccinated? Because we've sort of established at least that we'll see immunity after people get the 2 doses for Moderna and Pfizer, and then in other settings we'll see what that looks like once the Johnson & Johnson or the AstraZeneca vaccines come out. If we're looking at the US, it's more about like when people will get vaccinated, because right now, we've been vaccinating healthcare workers, vaccinating folks who are 65 and older. Depending on what state you live in, there's different ways that they've developed the tiers. So next up is folks who have comorbidities. That is like you have, like diabetes or high blood pressure, et cetera. So that's going to take some time, right? Because it's also like keeping up with actually producing the vaccine to then administer out in the population. So I think this whole year will really be about vaccination. That's why it's another reason why we should strategies, not just vaccination, but also social distancing, wearing a mask, etc. So I think it'll take some time. What confuses me?
I think
I'm
it's
not sure. So
mild,
sorry, there's a question.
mild symptoms. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think he's talking about mild symptoms. Some people get mild symptoms,
Mild.
and some people they get it's the kiss of death for some people. So I guess just to talk about how it affects people differently.
Yeah, it does affect people differently. And we, we establish sort of like what puts you at higher risk, being older, where you might not just respond the way it did when you were in your uh, when you were younger, having some of these other issues that make it harder for you to fight off a disease, like having cancer, or if you're already immunocompromised because you have this, or HIV, et cetera. So all of those aspects play a role in how coronavirus can affect you and lead you to having more severe disease. Um, and even in the case of like folks who are younger, sometimes you don't know if it'll trigger something like your immune system is kicked into high. So many different nuances to this, which is why it's really important to like try to keep it out. We don't want people to get infection. And though people have kind of dismissed it, they've been like, well, I'm good, I'm young, like I'll be fine if I get it. Even if you get it and you don't develop severe disease, there's still long COVID where people still experience symptoms, they're still coughing, they develop asthma, they have GI issues after the fact. They've seen things around people developing, was it glaucoma? Like there's all these things that are happening in the body that we're still trying to understand, like why that's the case. So this isn't something you want to like go out and sort of like risk it all. You want to try to prevent yourself from getting this and prevent others from getting it. So we have to work together to do that. So because it's not it's not something you want. So so the person asked, I'm sorry, I'm reading it under my breath, but there's a ask around vitamin D. I have been seeing anecdotally more evidence around this, or evidence is probably not the right word, but I'm hearing more people talk about vitamin D being effective. So if you are already taking vitamin D along with like vitamin C and all that, I would just say continue to take what keeps your immune system healthy. But I don't know that I've seen direct like peer-reviewed research. Not to say it's not being published and put out there, but I would say take your vitamins, take care of your body during this time as much as possible.
Awesome.
Okay. Okay. So, you got anybody else have any questions? Because I know the doctor's time is valuable, and she got to get back to work.
Sure do.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. For
Yeah.
sure. We had some good questions that were coming in through the chat, of course. So, but I think it doesn't. When we look at everything that's going on, is to. I know a lot of people, are not, how I want to say, not really paying attention too much to media, because everybody seems to have this distrust of what media is saying or not saying. The media is against us and this, that, and the other. Well, you got to get the information from somewhere, I would imagine. So I applaud, implore people to do whatever research that you can, whether it's about the virus itself or just about your own health, and health issues and concerns. And I would say, and I'm sure you would probably say that too, to make sure that we're all freaking with our physicians or doctors if we're able to go to the doctor, and get some other salient advice from them too as well.
Yeah, I still encourage folks to like continue to check back with things like the CDC. I when I'm checking for numbers and just like information in general, I check things like Johns Hopkins, and I check for oh Lord, it just escaped me. There's this amazing person, a fellow epidemiologist named Your Local Epidemiologist on Facebook. has really great distilled information about what's happening. So I would encourage folks to check that out too. As I mentioned, Not a Host is another platform that's building and trying to support what's happening for Black folks. The American Public Health Association, the New York Times has actually been putting out some effective information as well. I would like really just fact check, like I some of the sites you just gotta be aware of. There are folks saying all sorts of stuff on there, and it makes it confusing. But if you can get to somebody who has uh, like a clinical background, they're a physician or do research in healthcare, public health, like myself, folks can check out your local epidemiologist, as I was saying. I can drop. I can't guarantee I'll respond right away because it's been super difficult. But you can try to reach out to me. I'm to get back to being able to like answer questions and put content back out there. So I want to make sure folks have the right information at this time. It's just it's hurting us too much for us to do nothing. So.
Right. Right.
Okay, we appreciate you for your time, Dr. G. We'll let you get back to all this the hard work you got to do this evening. And when you get your time, get your bottle of wine and relax.
It might be tomorrow. We'll see. I also have to be up super early to work at one of the vaccine distribution sites too. So yeah, we out here.
Okay, well, we appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. All right, fellas.
Righteous.
We appreciate the doctor. Like we said, she gave us some good, vital key points that we need to take heed of. So, what else? Anybody else got something they want to bring up for this evening?
No, but in response to your question, was Xavier asked about, saying that Moderna says this coronavirus will be around from the onset. They were saying, that yes, and just to remember that this is not the only coronavirus that's in existence right now,
Mm-hmm.
currently as we speak. And when they were speaking about, before the vaccine ever came around on board, they had already said that this coronavirus will be around, for a minute, even after vaccines have been given. And I think the great thing is if most of us would have gotten vaccinated, down the line this year, then it definitely severely reduces. I think the continuous occurrence of the virus. So that's one of the reasons why they're advocating for people to really get vaccinated. So at some point, yes, you can really talk about herd immunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see what Xavier is saying.
Especially, well, if you're here in South Florida, I mean, I think in most of the places where the vaccine is being, distributed, um, a lot of the craziness that's happened, stem from the freedom of leadership, in a lot of places, especially here in Florida. In terms of what they did, what they didn't do, what they should have done. So if we're there, saying that vaccines are not coming to Black people, there's a reason for that. Some people might see that sinister, but it's just the fact that the leadership from above just freaked up everything from the beginning. And I think we should be in better position to be receiving the vaccines on a broader scale. But at the same time, we still, a lot of black communities still have that hesitancy to getting this vaccine. So even if the vaccine was, ready and waiting for a lot of black communities, there are a lot of people in black communities that are not, ready and willing to take. So, we got to get that education part out, and you got to appease the minds of people who are hesitant in taking it. So when later in the year, when more vaccine is available, when it gets to the point where you no longer have to in a tier to go get a vaccine, then we hope that more black people will go and get vaccinated.
I concur with that. I concur with that. Well, we come to that vital time of the show. Uh, I'm gonna let Ari go ahead and drop your jewels and let us know what you got going on this Sunday.
Ooh, yeah. Well, it's real simple. We gotta stay safe out there as much as we can as it pertains to to this virus, because I see a lot of craziness that's out there in John Public. And if you are unsure of being around certain people, well, the safest thing that you can do for yourself that is stay home and or just be around, you know, the people, i.e., hopefully that's family that lives in your house, but just keep your interactions to a minimum, I guess, and don't be in, very large crowds, especially in a crowd without a mask. So for me, my podcast on IG Live every Sunday, 7 p.m. This Sunday, we'll be talking to Ashley Carter. We'll be talking nutrition. She's a nutritionist and a registered dietitian. And so we'll be talking about, how that connects to the industry and just, us in general. Um, and that's what I got right now.
Oh, and we need some healthy nutrition tips for the coronavirus.
Well, I will definitely make sure I have that as a question or part of the conversation next week. So you guys tune in, 7 p.m. on IG. I am Chef Irie.
All right. Well, let us know what you got going on and where can these people, the folks, grab that wine.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to thank you both for having me, and also the fact check as well in the background for having me part of the show this evening. But what I have going on right now, poetry is what it is for me. February 27th, I'm doing a show called Poetic Strokes and Musical Notes, which includes three separate features. My poet for the evening is Mr. G.S. Cole. The singer for the evening is Urban Mystic, and the comedian for the evening is Fat and Funny. So tickets are on sale on Eventbrite. That's February 27th. And again, the wine, the second flavor drops February 13th, and you can actually pick that up at English Brown Winery, which is located in Hollywood off of 818. So just look up English Brown Winery, and you should be able to get the first flavor and the second flavor.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna wrap it up for us this evening, fellas. Um, Everybody stay safe out there. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and respect each other's space. This has
There.
been the bridge.